Lesson 193 is All Things Are Lessons God Would Have Me Learn. As you can see from the episodes I've downloaded, I really don't follow any rhyme or reason. I just post what I feel like talking about. Jesus starts the lesson off with saying God does not know of learning. There's that inherent contradiction between level 1 and level 2 throughout the course. It's a course in contradictions, but we are beings in contradiction. We contradict the will of God. We contradict our own will. He goes on to say, yet his will extends to what he does not understand, and that he wills the happiness his son inherited of him be undisturbed, eternal and forever gaining scope, eternally expanding in the joy of full creation, and eternally open and wholly limitless in him. That is his will, and thus his will provides the means to guarantee that it is done. So when we read that, we are so far removed from that description, eternally expanding in the joy of full creation. We don't experience God's will for us. We experience the opposite of that, completely disturbed. Our happiness is always disturbed. We're always subject to being disturbed. In truth, we don't know of learning either. Only in the position we've put ourselves in by our willingness to be separate from what we really are, what our will is, and what God is, do we know of its opposite. And now we have overlearned the dark lessons we taught ourselves about separation, sin, guilt, and fear. And we need to unlearn that to learn again what we really are. God sees no contradictions, yet his son believes he sees them. And we sure believe we see it in this course. Thus he has a need for one who can correct his erring sight and give him vision that will lead him back to where perception ceases. So all the different contradictions we think we see in this course, which reflects the contradictions we think we see in this world, those can be corrected because they all fall under the umbrella of illusion, hallucination. There's nothing outside of that. So when we try to cling to one thing here and call it the truth, as opposed to some other illusion standing next to it, whether it's words, language, ideas, we're engaging and investing in an illusory world. So all of our judgments and determinations about those illusions are false because they stem from a false premise that we are regarding reality. And we're regarding that reality from the position that we are bodies in a world. We are not the Son of God. We are not at home in God. So we have a need for one who can correct our sight and give us vision that will lead us back to where perception ceases. God does not perceive it all. If God doesn't perceive it all, and oneness is the truth, non-duality, then we can't perceive it all. If we think we're perceiving, we're insane. If we believe we are perceiving, we don't know what reality is anymore. Yet it is he who gives the means by which perception is made true and beautiful enough to let the light of heaven shine upon it. It is he who answers what his son would contradict and keeps his sinlessness forever safe. So we would establish sin is real. We would establish the pain and agony of our world is true and right and the only reality, and we are part of that reality. And God would correct that perception, not because he sees a contradiction, not because he is aware of an illusory state, but because that is our deepest need right now. We need to be let out of what we created. And that is what the dream calls for. The dream contains its own ending. It is not eternal. Only the truth is eternal. Third paragraph, these are the lessons God would have you learn. His will reflects them all, and they reflect his loving kindness to the son he loves. Again, God only knows us in truth. He doesn't know us as a dream figure, as a puppet, a shadow on the wall of the mind. He doesn't know us that way. He only knows us as a part of a never-ending, expanding, eternal oneness. Each lesson has a central thought, the same in all of them. So that's how his will reflects them all. They reflect his loving kindness. These lessons have a central thought, which is the same, reflecting that loving kindness. Here, not because they're true, but they're a reflection of the truth that we can accept and embrace and love. The form alone is changed with different circumstances and events, with different characters and different themes, apparent but not real. And that is how different characters in the dream can seem to embrace different ideas because of the differences that we perceive here. We seem to respond to different things. We believe different things are expressions of love. Different things seem to comfort everybody in the world. They are the same in fundamental content. And that gets to the important distinction between content and form. Never mistake the form for content. It's basically what he's talking about when he talks about the picture of specialness versus the Holy Spirit's picture. I'm paraphrasing this, but the picture of specialness is an empty frame. There is no content there, but there are diamonds and rubies, and it's an elaborate frame designed to distract from the fact that there's no content. And when you look closer at those elaborate rubies and diamonds, they are tears and blood. That is the frame of nothingness that we've created. That's what frames the nothingness we created. Whereas the Holy Spirit, the frame does not distract from the content because the content is pure love. So there's love or nothingness. We experience that nothingness as hatred, as sorrow, as pain, anything that can represent to us the opposite of love, which is the Holy Spirit's only picture with no need for framing at all. So that's a little metaphor for content versus form. So the lesson that God would have us learn, whatever form appeals to people in different circumstances and events, different characters and themes, it is this: forgive and you will see this differently. That is our only function, forgiveness. We've said that many times. We've seen it many times. My only function here is forgiveness. And it is our only function because it is the route that will allow us to see things differently, to let go of the way we set them up, to see that I was never upset for the reason I think, and ultimately to get me home. Paragraph 4, certain it is that all distress does not appear to be but unforgiveness. Yet that is the content underneath the form. It is this sameness which makes learning sure, because the lesson is so simple that it cannot be rejected in the end. No one can hide forever from a truth so very obvious that it appears in countless forms and yet is recognized as easily in all of them, if one but wants to see the simple lesson there. Forgive and you will see this differently. All distress, no matter what we think it is, no matter who we think has hurt us, no matter who we think we hate, no matter who we think hates us, all distress is a form of unforgiveness. The content underneath the form is unforgiveness. That is the sameness. That is the generalizability of the overall lesson. Nothing can be held apart from forgiveness's gentle touch. Nothing but should be overlooked here. As here in this world, everything we perceive is part of a dream. It is a shadow. It has no substance. Our firm belief it has substance is what keeps forgiveness at bay. We can choose to overlook some things, but not all things. But that really only tells us, I want the dream. I want to stay asleep and I want to keep dreaming. I just want a better dream. I want to be what I think I am, but with less pain. I want to get things here that I view as valuable and good, because some of these illusions seem valuable and good to me. So I have not seen them all as they really are. But the sameness makes the lesson so simple. No one can hide forever from a truth so very obvious it appears in countless forms. Again, he's talking about the fact that there is an ending to dreaming. Because that's another great way our ego can get us. You're going to be dreaming forever. And even if you wake up, you're just going to be right back here. And I'm going to torture you forever. And you'll always glimpse another shore that you can never reach. So no one can hide from truth forever. Simple lesson is forgive, and we'll see this differently. These are the words the Holy Spirit speaks in all your tribulations, all your pain, all suffering, regardless of its form. These are the words with which temptation ends and guilt, abandoned, is revered no more. Guilt is revered in this world by us and seemingly by everything around us. We delight in finding guilt because it makes the pathways of the world seem surer. We stand on what seems to be more solid ground about what we are, what everyone is, what the world is, and we seek that certainty that we can never find here, because in this world is the absence of knowledge. We truly can't know anything here, and some part of us knows that that's true. We know we can't know. And so those who don't know are trying to establish here what the truth is. And what can the truth be in the absence of knowledge, but based upon desire? So in the absence of knowledge, we're left with only desire, and that desire drives what we see and focus on. These are the words with which temptation ends and guilt, abandoned, is revered no more. These are the words which end the dream of sin and rid the mind of fear. These are the words by which salvation comes to all the world. Our desire for our individuality and autonomy makes us pay that price of fear, terror, pain, and guilt to keep the idea of sin alive, to keep the idea of separation alive. We have to be willing to be separate. We're never a victim. Paragraph 6, shall we not learn to say these words when we are tempted to believe that pain is real and death becomes our choice instead of life? Shall we not learn to say these words when we have understood their power to release all minds from bondage? These are words which give you power over all events that seem to have been given power over you. You see them rightly when you hold these words in full awareness, and do not forget these words apply to everything you see or any brother looks upon amiss. That is so all-encompassing. There is nothing left outside the beneficence of forgiveness. It heals everything. Everything is seen differently. There's not one vestige where we can kind of pick it apart and say, oh, this thing over here went so wrong, it can never be corrected. It heals everything. Temptation ends. So we try to train ourselves to say these words in the face of any pain we experience, anything we think is the cause of that pain. We will always be wrong about the cause of the pain because we have learned to see the cause outside of ourselves. And even if it's our own body, it is still something that we seems to be outside of us, because we seem to be trapped in our bodies and their destiny to decline. How can you tell when you are seeing wrong or someone else is failing to perceive the lesson he should learn? Does pain seem real in the perception? If it does, be sure the lesson is not learned, and there remains an unforgiveness hiding in the mind that sees the pain through eyes the mind directs. So all pain is the idea of guilt made real. It is our clinging to the idea of guilt that keeps pain alive and real and in our awareness. No other cause will it ever have. We can point to things outside of us, circumstances we don't like, people we don't like, whatever it is, whatever seems to be happening, there will ever only be one cause for pain. And that is what he's trying to teach us. That cause for pain is unforgiveness, which means we have seen guilt, rejoiced at what we thought was there, and we're clinging to it with both hands. Because no one who could hear these words and sees an escape route would not willingly give it up unless we wanted guilt to be the truth. That's the problem. That resistance, we can't really see or understand how much we cling to guilt. The obstacle to peace, first one, the desire to get rid of it. And we don't have to see it to understand it must be at play. We can understand the process of the mind that We cannot be victims, that we are the ones who have chosen what to experience. So there remains an unforgiveness hiding in the mind that sees the pain through eyes the mind directs, which is usually, you are the cause of my pain. I could be happy except for you. Now I'm stuck. Now I'm just a pained individual and it's somebody else's fault. Or it's my fault for what my body did. God would not have you suffer thus. How would help He would help you forgive yourself. His son does not remember who he is, and God would have him not forget his love and all the gifts his love brings with it. Would you now renounce your own salvation? Would you fail to learn the simple lessons heaven's teacher sets before you, that all pain may disappear and God may be remembered by his son? Would we fail to learn the simple lesson? Yes, we would. We absolutely would fail to learn that simple lesson. As long as we seem to be here and in pain, we have failed to learn the simple lesson. So if we're complaining, my daughter or my father or my brother-in-law or my cousin or my friend or my boss or anyone upset me, whenever I look at any of them and think, you did this to me, I'm in pain because you're there doing what you're doing. I'm failing to learn the simple lesson. And the more I hang on to what I have decided is the cause of pain, the more I hang on to the pain itself. It's like we're taking poison. I need to keep those outside of me real and alive in my dream, not puppets, not dream figures, not characters. I need to keep them alive to prove what I am. And therefore, I have to suffer pain, because to see them alive is to see them as guilty. They did things to me, they said things to me, they thought things about me, and now I'm in pain. All things are lessons God would have you learn. He would not leave an unforgiving thought without correction, nor one thorn or nail to hurt his holy Son in any way. He would ensure his holy rest remain untroubled and serene, without a care, in an eternal home which cares for him. And he would have all tears be wiped away, with none remaining yet unshed, and none but waiting their appointed time to fall. For God has willed that laughter should replace each one, and that his Son be free again. So that laughter would be evil if the cause of our pain, as we see it, were real. And sometimes we see God as the cause of our pain, or Jesus, or we berate them. Why aren't you helping me more? I'm doing everything you said and I'm still in pain. And somehow it's your fault, or it's their fault, or there's fault and guilt found at every turn. The laughter looks right to the true cause. No matter what the pain seems to be, it still is true that we're doing it to ourselves. We are doing it to ourselves. There's a trifling cause for all of the devastation we think is wrought in our lives or is yet to come. Paragraph 10, we will attempt today to overcome 1,000 seeming obstacles to peace in just one day. Let mercy come to you more quickly. Do not try to hold it off another day, another minute, or another instant. Time was made for this. Use it today for what its purpose is. Morning and night, devote what time you can to serve its proper aim, and do not let the time be less than meets your deepest need. That last clause is what plays in my mind. Do not let the time be less than meets your deepest need. There's nothing to fight ourselves against here. We will let the time be what meets our deepest need. That is going to happen. And if we're not allotting much time to it, that's not our deepest need. Our deepest need is to keep our dream alive and try to figure out how we're going to win here. Win something, get something. And that is nothing to be judged. That should not be judged. The whole point of forgiveness is to not judge, because the ego wants us to make a big deal out of that. Well, look at you. You're just, bopping around trying to get your greedy little hands on something. You don't really want the peace of God. You want what you can get here. You want something for you alone. You desire your specialness. So the ego will berate us and try to judge us for what it is telling us to do. Seek outside of ourselves for what will make us whole. We need to back up from that, look upon the ego thought system playing out without judging it. Just seeing it for what it is. Seeing it for what it is all we need to do. We don't need to change. We don't need to stop trying to live our lives and make ourselves comfortable. We're going to try to make ourselves comfortable no matter what. In any way we think it's meaningful to us. We need stepping back from all of it to a reference point outside of the whole picture, the course, this lesson, everything. Seeing all of it as part of the broad illusion, the illusion that encompasses all of our senses, reporting back. Everything that is reported is illusion. There is an awareness watching that, and that awareness is all we ever were. We can get in touch with our decision maker if we can look upon the illusion without judgment. Just observe. We're the observer, and we know whether we're observing with Jesus, by whether we're observing without judgment and in peace. We can watch terrible upset, but the observer in us doesn't have to participate in it and add layers to it that seem to be, the bands of chains and steel bands that we can't escape from. Do not let the time be less than meets your deepest need. So we'll experience ourselves as in conflict, which represents the split mind. Yet we observe that split mind. We didn't go back far enough. We didn't go deep enough. If we're messing around in that conflict as though we're one with it, the conflict is within the split mind. We want the dream. We want the better dream that doesn't exist, and we want the peace of God, which we can't have as long as we choose the dream. Give all you can and give a little more, for now we would arise in haste and go unto our Father's house. We have been gone too long, and we would linger here no more. And as we practice, let us think about all things we saved to settle by ourselves and kept apart from healing. Let us give all to him who knows the way to look upon them so that they will disappear. Truth is his message. Truth his teaching is. His are the lessons God would have us learn. We do keep things apart from healing. And as we move along, and we train our mind to remember the new lessons we're trying to learn, then we can step back. We can step back, take Jesus's hand, and look upon what we've done. And it's important to remember it's not about behavior. It will always seem that people are selfish in the dream. It will always seem that way because to be a figure in a dream, for there to be a figure in a dream, it has to take up space and prevent anything else from occupying that space. There has to be little prisons made up of those figures in the dream where no one can enter. No one can experience what each figure experiences. It's theirs alone. The idea of having something for you alone is the willingness to be separate, is the choice for the ego. It is the choice against reality and in favor of duality in the hopes that it will bring something that you want. This is the lesson God would have you learn. Paragraph 12. Each hour spend a little time today and in the days to come in practicing the lesson in forgiveness and the form established for the day. Try to give it application to the happenings the hour brought, so that the next one is free of the one before. The chains of time are easily unloosened in this way. Let no 1 hour cast its shadow on the one that follows, and when that one goes, let everything that happened in its course go with it. Thus will you remain unbound in peace eternal in the world of time. So we give an application to the happenings the hour brought. Well, the happenings the hour brought are being stuck in traffic, being cut off in traffic, someone being rude, someone being hurtful. Maybe it seems to be a significant happening in the world's terms. Somebody um, has physically harmed you or abandoned you, or you've abandoned someone and physically harmed them. The happenings the hour brought are to be looked upon and let go of, so the next one is free of the one before. So not one hour cast a shadow on the one that follows. That is how we live in the past constantly. We're always bringing the past with us and seeing everyone through that lens, seeing everything that happens through that lens. And the world smiles upon it because that is what we call learning. That's what we call um, maturing so that we can navigate this overcomplicated world and our overcomplicated selves. But the chains of time are loosened when we let each hour go and not cast that shadow on the one that follows. Let everything that happened in its course go with it, remain unbound. This relates to our deepest need. My deepest need is peace, and I want peace. I will not bring that forward. I will not choose to hang on to my grief. I won't choose to hang on to the guilt I saw and found in myself or others. And then there's that tendency for the ego to say, you're going to be in big trouble if you don't bring that forward because either you're guilty or they're guilty, and somebody's going to have to pay the price for that guilt. Well, everybody pays the price when you hold on to guilt. Everybody remains, we are trapped here and we trap everybody else. In truth, we've done nothing to anyone else because there isn't anybody else there. But we have trapped ourselves inside of a shadow and will remain deceived until we can understand and embrace and apply the simple lessons he would teach. I am not required to bring the happenings of the last hour with me. It seems like it happens against our will. There's a little moment in time that turns and we forget we chose it. Just that tiny instant. If we can learn to see that moment when we chose to carry the happening with us and make it be real again in this instant and the next instant and carry that past so the past becomes eternal and we can't experience the now or pieces, we can catch ourselves and we don't have to do it. We are not required to do it. So when we do it, we can be honest with Jesus and say, Jesus, you didn't fail me. I trust you 100%. I am making a choice because I'm too afraid of your love. I am terrified of giving up the little that I think I have. I'm terrified of the judgment I think will come to me from following what you're saying. And so I'm going to remain bound and I'm going to remain in conflict in the world of time until the moment comes when we do desire peace eternal in the world of time. And that becomes our deepest need. This is the lesson God would have you learn. There is a way to look on everything that lets it be to you another step to Him and to salvation of the world. In order to take another step to Him and to salvation of the world, we have to be willing to see things differently through our function of forgiveness and trust in Jesus' message that we won't be left abandoned and terrified when we follow Him and embrace His simple message and understand that guilt cannot be real and that everything we think we see and every cause we think we see has no substance at all. It is clouds that they're clouds we can easily move through. They don't have to stop us in our tracks. We are not required to grab onto things we don't want. Sin, guilt, and fear. To all that speaks of terror, answer thus: I will forgive and this will disappear. That's the second line. The reason why I chose this whole lesson. I will forgive and this will disappear is such a calming, soothing, comforting thought. It can be repeated 1,000 times a day and it will always have that same soothing connotation. I will forgive and this will disappear. There's responsibility in that. Forgiveness is up to me. It's my one function. I need to choose it. I will forgive. and all illusions will disappear. The illusions that I am a thing full of hatred for everyone and everything that doesn't suit me, that doesn't make me comfortable. We all see ourselves as a hateful thing. We hate and experience ourselves as hated. Or we have the illusion of love that is really just waiting some antagonist so that so the hate, it becomes apparent again. We came here to hate. And until we forgive ourselves, what seem to be the others, and God and the world, it will all linger. And the course will be accepted entirely or not at all, because nothing can be held outside of forgiveness, not a single thing, but will jeopardize our learning and keep the peace away from us and maintain the terror in our minds. The terror we feel of ourselves and of God, and what price we're ultimately going to have to pay for guilt that we might not even be able to articulate whatever we think we did wrong. I will forgive and this will disappear. It's so complete, all embracing. This will disappear. And what is this? Everything we think we perceive. To every apprehension, every care, and every form of suffering, repeat these self-same words, and then you hold the key that opens heaven's gate and brings the love of God, the Father, down to earth at last, to raise it up to heaven. God will take this final step himself. Do not deny the little steps he asks you to take to him. In taking those steps, number one essential thing, as always, is to understand how we don't want to take a single step in that direction. We don't want to, and we are fooling ourselves and lying to ourselves if we think we do. We don't want to do that. The process of the course is to appreciate resistance and see it for what it is, accept responsibility for all the suffering and pain, the suffering that proclaims, I have seen some sin, rejoiced at what is there, suffering that proclaims, I'm damning the others to hell. And that's the price I'm paying for my innocence and their guilt. So they will be damned to hell. It's the desire to murder, to kill off psychologically those around me. So when we look at the resistance and all the forms it can pop up, is everything here, that is a way to transcend it. You cannot move beyond resistance if you never see it for what it is. Because if you don't see resistance for what it is, the decision you're making to repress, deny, maintain the illusion in your mind by actively engaging and pushing out reality and blocking it from awareness constantly. The block to the awareness of love's presence is us. It's our choice. We set up the defenses. We set up those blocks. And then when we go to try to remove them, we're so attached to them. We're so tied. It's tied to the very essence of what we think we are. It's too terrifying to remove them. So when we don't pay attention to the actual resistance, what will happen is the guilt will run rampant. We will see guilt everywhere and believe it's real. So I don't see the resistance in me. So I believe I want to forgive and have everything disappear. I think I want to forgive and see everything differently. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. So then you end up going back to, well, I'm doing everything he says and it's not working. And this path is not working. I'm being failed by someone or something. That is what keeps us in the dream, because we didn't see resistance for what it was. If we see resistance for what it is, then we back up, call upon Jesus to hold his hand, to look upon the resistance with forgiving eyes. The resistance is nothing until we make it something. We have to breathe life into that resistance. And when we do that, we're holding on to the guilt and seeing the cause of our pain outside of us and damning everyone to hell and committing psychological murder. So that's kind of the way it goes. I know I'm being very repetitious, but I feel like it's so essential to repeat the dynamic, because Resistance will keep us from looking at the dynamic. So the more we can see it or say it and understand it, the more helpful it'll be when we think we want to take Jesus' hand, but we're doing anything but. We're doing anything but taking his hand. We are not doing what he says. We've convinced ourselves, deluded ourselves into believing, I want to learn this course. I'm doing just what he said. If you're not at peace, then we're not doing what he said. And the only thing we can say in true honesty is, Jesus, I am terrified of your love, and I don't want anything you got to offer. I don't want what you're selling, because I'm going to try to make this work. And if you really love me, you try to help me make this work here. So we move forward aware that we will deny the little steps God asks us to take to him. And that's okay. And it's not a big deal. Whatever our ego wants to make a big deal out of, we can smile on that. That is a great first step. It doesn't deny the resistance. It denies the resistance is a big deal. Nothing is a big deal here. And a part of us can see that. And that is holding Jesus' hand. Through resistance and the choice for the ego thought system and the choice for individuality and the choice to be a starved and thirsty creature looking for water in a world where we won't find it. So that pain and misery, as I often say, is the motivation to learn the course. That's really the only thing he identifies as the motivation. Dreams we think we like would hold us back as much as the dreams we think we hate. They're two of the same thing because they're both ways in which we see reality as duality and illusion. If that sounds too bleak, I think it's important to remember that we will choose again. It is inevitable. And just as he says in here, that the laughter will replace the tears and the pain will disappear. It is not possible that the dream of sin will be eternal. Only the truth is eternal. Forgiven, you will see this differently. These are the words which end the dream of sin and rid the mind of fear. These are the words by which salvation comes to all the world. Those are words of certainty. In the end, time is meaningless. For that, we say, Amen.